Greetings, B-movie aficionados.
Hello, welcome to A Couple of Flicks. I am Tristan.
Nick.
And I'm Zach.
And today we are going to discuss a picture that was made this year, apparently, or released this year at the very least. 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Do either you want to say the title?
Moonfall.
Yes.
Got pretty big on the internet for being crappy,
Yeah. Little Roland Emmerich, It's apparently independently financed too.
Yeah. Cool. Yep. One of like the highest budgeted independent movies ever, if not the biggest.
Definitely up there. It's like up there with like The Passion of the Christ, I think, and like I don't know. I'm sure there's some others. Anyway, so Roland Emmerich. I don't know. So, what else have you guys seen by Roland Emmerich? Just out of curiosity.
Let's look at his stuff.
Oh, okay.
A bunch of stuff, I'm sure. Yeah.
Do you want me to name some off the top of my head? Or?
Shit, I've seen The Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah,
yep, seen that. Yeah.
The Patriot.
Yeah, with Mel Gibson. Yeah, which, speaking of which, Passion of the Christ director. Yeah, so there you go. Yeah. But okay, so yeah. All right, Patriot. Day After Tomorrow. I think he's probably most well known for Independence Day.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
My personal favorite is Stargate. Which, you want to talk about a series that they flushed down the fucking toilet. Like, there you go, right there. Oh. Anyway,
Universal Soldier.
Oh yeah, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Jean-Claude.
Yeah. He did Joey, aka Making Contact, from the 80s.
I've been considering picking that for a while.
Yeah, that one I would be very curious to rewatch, because I have seen that one, and yeah, it's pretty corny, but I'm definitely curious to rewatch that one if you ever decide to pick it. Early Roland Emmerich.
He did the 98 Godzilla.
Yeah. Oh yeah, with Matthew Broderick, the fish man.
Wow. Oh, brilliant. 2012 saw that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, with Johnny C. Yeah, I mean, you kind of get the gist of it. I mean, the guy doesn't really make the greatest types of movies, but at the same time,
a lot of disaster movies. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a reliable formula, so I guess that he's got that going for him, and I guess he's having a harder and harder time making movies, it seems, because if this one was independently financed and it feels like something that he's made like for the studios before, like, I don't know, that's kind of a curious phenomenon. I don't think I've ever seen that before. So.
It has to be something he's wanted to make.
Yeah. It seems to be, it seemed to have been some type of passion project if he, felt the need to, I don't know.
Dump 120 mil of his own.
Basically. I mean, it does seem like this film did get some international like backing here and there as far as sponsorship, but not much outside of that, it seems. Oh, and I mean,
Lexus.
the cast is somewhat varied too. But what was that?
The Lexus sponsorship.
Oh, yeah. Which, I mean, I think they name drop it a few times. I mean, I don't know. They name drop a bunch of stuff. I don't know. Where do you even begin with this movie? Like,
and he definitely tried to target the Chinese audience, I feel, too.
Yeah, I think so. Which, to be fair, I mean, somewhere in the midst of the storyline, isn't there like sort of like a brief mention of China assisting in like the whole manufacturing
Yeah.
or something? Yeah.
Yep. And that girl, I think, that took care of Halle Berry's kid.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen her.
I believe was Chinese.
Yeah, I think I'm like, yeah, I don't know her. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. So she ended up being kind of one of the main characters, though. So, so I don't know. How would both you guys, like, if you were kind of to sort of summarize, like, if somebody asked you, tell me in one sentence, what did you think of this movie? Like, what is this movie?
A mess.
I mean, I kind of see it as sort of like a more depressing version of Armageddon. Like, that's what it felt like to me.
It was just a giant mess of everything, really.
Yeah.
A disaster movie and a science fiction movie, action. And it just goes real hard fast too.
Yeah, heavy on the sci-fi, which is what surprised me the most, you know.
Yeah.
And what about you, Zach?
Yeah, I didn't expect that. But
yeah,
I don't know how I would describe this. Just watch it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's all right. Well, I guess maybe we should try to describe the storyline a little bit. You know, it is sort of an apocalyptic picture. It's like a quasi-apocalypse picture, I guess is what I'd call it.
Shit goes down. Like the world should have ended.
I mean, it kind of, in a way, it kind of did, but you know, we can get into that when the time comes. So, so yeah, I guess. All right, so the way this film starts off, it's kind of like Gravity, I guess. You know, I feel like Roland Emmerich was sort of trying to aim for that type of atmosphere at the start. You know, and you have like these folks in these kind of astronaut suits. Okay, like what are they even doing? So they're trying to like fix something, right? Like a satellite.
Yeah, just said like there was a lower third that said satellite repair mission. That's all. 2000, like gave the date 2011 or 12 or something. Satellite repair mission.
Yeah, I didn't catch the date because I was like, there are so many tube TVs in this movie that I was like, when does this take place?
It took place, because that first scene was 10 years before. And it said 2011 or 12. So
okay, yeah, I missed that.
So yeah, it does take place in our present day, 2022, 2021.
Yeah. So so they're repairing a satellite. All of a sudden, some debris of some sort. Well, it appears to be debris, but it later turns out to be like basically like miniature meteorites, I guess. Or wait a minute, no, that's not what it is. If they're nano machine or nanos, like the nanobots.
It looks like a swarm of something that
that was it. Okay,
black storm attacks. Yeah.
Okay, I'm already getting confused because like there's multiple threats in this movie, which that was another thing I didn't expect because I literally thought that this movie. All right, so can I just tell you what I thought this movie was going to be before I watched it, and then like what it actually turned out to be? What I thought this movie was going to be was, all right. So I knew before watching it that Roland Emmerich put sort of the majority of the budget, like was kind of his own money, I guess you could say. And so my impression initially was that I looked at the title Moonfall. The poster looked kind of minimal. I thought it was just going to be about a bunch of people like sort of preparing for the world to end as the moon crushes everybody. Like I thought it was going to be like Melancholia or like Don't Look Up or something like that. But it ended up kind of being basically just like Armageddon. So
with a little bit of Independence Day.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit of Independence Day, a little bit of Armageddon. Like, picture both of those movies kind of mushed together and going wrong in a lot of different ways. And then on top of that, like a nice little spoonful of existentialism, like, which I also didn't expect, like, because throughout most of this movie, once I realized that it was a disaster movie, I was kind of, I was sort of ditching the idea that it was going to try to go all deep and stuff. So, so yeah, so they get attacked. All right, so yeah, so they end up they're working on the satellite. They get attacked by a bunch of nanobots. I think one of them even ends up dying. And so then Patrick Wilson and Halle Berry, she's in this. I keep forgetting. Okay, so yeah, all right. Okay, so Patrick Wilson and Halle Berry end up having to sort of maneuver their way back to wherever their rendezvous point was after the satellite gets hit by the nanobots. And then afterward, the government, proceeds to just kind of cover it all up, and both of them just sort of fuck off. Halle Berry moves on and they both have families, but Patrick Wilson's character ends up sort of falling into a terrible wreck of it. Like, he's like late on his rent, like,
because
all this stuff.
As the cover-up was going down, they say that it was just like some type of avoidable solar flare or something avoidable that basically they blamed on Patrick Wilson. Halle Berry even kind of threw him under the bus, and so they like made him look like a bad guy, even though it wasn't his fault or anything and shit like that.
It was just a government cover-up.
He landed it without power too.
Oh yeah,
that becomes a plot point.
Yeah, he landed that spaceship with no power somehow. Don't think that's possible, but he did it.
Patrick Wilson has supernatural powers, I guess. All right, so then 10 years later, Halle Berry's had a kid. Patrick Wilson's kid has kind of fallen off the track a little bit. He's wound up in some legal trouble. And actually, there's even a scene where Patrick Wilson shows up at the courthouse and starts arguing with the judge for some reason, which I don't know why you would do that. That was such a stupid thing. And of course, as you can imagine, the kid gets in trouble, or gets in further trouble, because then the judge is like, oh, so he's a flight risk. All right, well, you know what? In that case, like, we got to take this seriously, because this is a little too unorthodox, I guess, is basically the sort of consensus. And while all this is happening, let's see, there's this whole thing where the guy from Game of Thrones, do you guys know his name? Because I don't. I keep forgetting.
John Bradley.
Yeah.
Sam Tarley, I think his name was in Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah. He's in this movie. And it isn't until 10 years later that he actually becomes kind of an important character. Actually, he's a really important character, because he's a conspiracy theorist, and he's keeping tabs on the moon because he has this belief that the moon is a machine, like it was like built, or
a mega structure.
Yeah. Kind of like Star Trek, and there's this whole thing where he's working at, I think it's like a fast food restaurant, and he gets a text about like the moon's locationing being like off a little bit, like off kilter. And so
he like broke into, I think, I can't tell if that was actually his job, because he mentioned it earlier that he tried to work at NASA as a janitor, but he was in NASA and, I don't know, pretended to be a janitor, and then looked like he took some data from NASA and then went to that fast food job, and he was late and shit. And then, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I was a little confused about that, because it just didn't seem like he even knew what he was doing when he was there anyway. So it's like, but I guess that's his character. So then he's sent into a frenzy. He goes to this it's like a meet and greet for like kids at the museum. I guess that's kind of the impression I got, that Patrick Wilson, because he was a former astronaut, was supposed to go to, but he ended up drinking a little too much the night before, or no, maybe he forgot to set his alarm. Whatever, he ends up sleeping through it, and so
he's a mess. Yeah,
yeah,
he's a mess. And
exactly.
I think that was his job. I think it was just like some museum, whatever they call them, museum talker,
a walking
guide.
astronaut.
Yeah, telling kids about.
Yeah, get to meet a real spaceman. So he shows up at the museum, and he's already spouting his conspiracy theorists to the class. So Patrick Wilson, he gets him kicked out. But then, before too long, shit starts hitting the fan, because like the whole, so the fact that the moon is off orbit starts trending on Twitter. So before like the president, anybody, the head of NASA, everybody even has time to react, everybody's already sort of panicking.
Yeah, he was the first one to know even before NASA.
Yeah,
was the point of it.
Yeah. So let's see then what happened. So all right, so basically, I guess, all right, so the gag is that the moon it's basically entering Earth's atmosphere, and at a certain point it starts getting caught up in Earth's gravitational pull, and when that happens, it starts kind of spiraling around the Earth in a little bit more of a frenzied sort of center. And then as that happens, pieces of the moon start falling off and becoming meteors, and it starts happening faster and faster, and it eventually is supposed to lead to the annihilation of the Earth. Am I missing anything? I feel like I'm explaining the basic gist of it pretty okay, right?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
it's going great.
Yeah. Okay. So
it goes real fast once shit starts going.
Yeah, because suddenly everybody kind of reacts as if it's the end of the world. Like it's like 2012 on steroids. There's even like cults and all sorts of rioting and doomsday prophecies and all sorts of stuff happening all at once. And meanwhile,
one sponsor, I thought it was Elon Musk, SpaceX.
Oh yeah, there's even one part,
just because like that, he says it a couple of times. He's like, "Oh, I love Elon." A couple SpaceX fucking posters around and shit.
Even at one point he says, "What would Elon do?" As if it's like, "What would Jesus do?" What would Elon do? It's like, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, and then when they refuel, it's from a SpaceX refueling station.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's see. So there's that going on, and meanwhile, like Patrick Wilson, he's of course having to sort of deal with the fact that he's inevitably going to sort of be brought in, I guess, so to speak, because there's some degree of he has some degree of familiarity with the nanobots. Because all right, so NASA actually does try to send somebody to deal with the moon situation. It's like a ship, and they end up basically getting eaten by these bots. Like these things, like it was actually my favorite scene in the movie. They bust through the windows, and they literally go inside of your spacesuit and go into you, like, and eat you from the inside. It's like, ooh, that's pretty cool. I could have used more of that. Like that was interesting. Right. That was like virus Jamie Lee Curtis level shit. Oh yeah. Oh, I thought you said something. Sorry. But yeah, I like that part. That was cool. And they look at it on the surveillance footage, and you see it a couple times too.
Yeah, and then like I think Halle Berry, maybe it was, goes back and checks Patrick Wilson's like space camera from the day that first thing happened, and she sees that, oh, wow, this was a cover up. This did happen. There were space bots.
Yeah, and once they reveal that, that's when the film's like the logic of the film, like the logical fabric of the film starts to kind of unweave a little bit, because it's like, all right, so the government went to all this trouble to turn Patrick Wilson into a pariah, even though his body cam footage existed. Like, and it's kind of like, all right, well, I mean, why didn't anybody ask for that? Like, you know, or did somebody, and then was it doctored? Like, I don't know. I could have used a little bit more explanation there, but whatever. I guess
what they were trying to do about it, if they knew this entity existed.
Yeah,
like that seems very foolish to just say, oh yeah, some type of space alien something attacked our people, but we're just gonna ignore it and pretend it never happened. Okay,
pretty much, yeah. And Patrick Wilson's he's dead set on getting the deed done by taking care of this whole moon situation. But of course, when like in the prep stages, there was like some issue with like one of the engines or something like that. Like,
yeah. So they're what they have to do now is to stop it. They want to. They've realized. Well, at first they realized that it attacks electricity with organisms in it, with like actual organisms, not just lone electricity. Somehow I forget how they figured that out exactly, but it had to do with that other space shuttle getting attacked and then something else not getting attacked.
Yeah. It had to be, there had to be organic. It's something organic within something AI. Like it had
electronic,
to be like yeah.
That's why they wanted Patrick Wilson as the pilot, because he was able to pilot a spaceship without any electronics on.
Yeah, which was impressive, because he actually sort of used science to his advantage,
Yep. So what their plan was, they get an EMP from the government, just a big old EMP. And as they were about to lift off, the moon fucked up the tectonic shifts where they were just basically caused an earthquake and fucked up the rocket ship they were going to blast off in. But they did it anyway.
Yeah, use the gravity to launch even more.
Yeah.
And the thing that pissed me off the most about that is that Halle Berry sent everybody home.
Yeah.
Before which to me, it's like, all right, why the hell did you do that? You booted everyone out, and then you're just gonna go solo with yourself and Patrick Wilson, and then it gets worse, because then they force the conspiracy theorist to go along with them, like, and he very clearly states that he makes it all but obvious that he doesn't want to even go with them.
He has IBS.
Yeah. IBS, anxiety, like he's making it pretty clear, and yet they kind of just ignore it. And it's like, no, you know more than we do. Like, they pretty much all but admit like they're stupid and he's smart, So I like the fact that this movie has characters in it that are willing to go as far as to admit that they're dumb. I mean, that I appreciate that. Even the scientists, like, they miscalculate everything in this movie. Mm-hmm. And I love that, because that's kind of realistic, honestly. Like, when people look at calamities and look at like approximations and stuff like that, they're only looking at what like they have like the vaguest idea of. They aren't always looking at the most concrete data. And in a doomsday situation, when the moon is literally going to I guess fall on planet Earth. I mean, I think at one point they say we only have a matter of weeks, but then everything starts going wrong within 24 hours. I mean, everything starts flooding. You got that Ziggy stoner dude who freaks out at one point. Like, I don't even know what he had to do with the plot, but I remember him being in there. Like,
they did say they had weeks, but the gravitational of the fucking messed it up, so it was actually technically days.
yeah, pretty much. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
They were said.
Oh,
Time
okay.
was all the time was wonky though, either way.
Yeah, I mean, everything that happens in this movie probably happened. I mean, aside from the intro, of course, everything that happens probably happens within the span of maybe 45 hours max, I would say. That's the impression I got.
What it seemed like, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because otherwise, that kid was on the road for days before the vehicle got hijacked. So, but okay, I'm
It
getting ahead of myself.
could have at least
Oh,
given us a like day one or a day two kind of thing, but
yeah,
And also, yeah, that first
I,
mission with the guys that died to the moon. How long did that take them to get there? I feel like going to the moon takes weeks or months in general,
yeah.
unless it
yeah.
was already super close to us for that mission. I don't know.
I mean, really, the only way you can measure it is based on how long that kid's son was in jail for, and the judge. I mean, he pretty clearly stated like we have to revisit this in like a week or something like that. I don't remember exactly what he said, but like, um, like it, but then because of the whole like the whole emergency situation and the fact that like the world ends up actually starting to flood, of course that whole sentence kind of gets curved, and that results in another kind of interesting subplot actually, because that's when the woman who gets put in charge of Halle Berry's son ends up having to team up with Patrick Wilson's son, and at that point, like shit's really going down. Like things really do happen fast. When you said
Hmm.
things happen fast, like you're not kidding. Like as they're not they leave the wherever it is, like the emergency center that they retreated to during the flood,
Yeah, I
and
mean the
on their
flood started super fast too. I noticed. I was like, oh, they're just barely
yeah
figuring out that this is happening, and then the floods just start fucking coming in. I was like, oh, okay, they wasted
yeah
no time at all.
yeah, they're watching it on TV, and the TV is saying, "You got to get out of here, ASAP, emergency, as soon as possible." And they look down at their feet, and water is like up to their ankles almost. So like, yeah, it happens really, really fast. So they're on the road, and they end up getting, they're like his vehicle ends up getting hijacked, which luckily he's a street smart type of kid, and he has like he's played by the kid from that movie King Jack, so he can take a beating, and he's got a gun in his vehicle that he doesn't let the looters know about. He kind of tosses it under the
Oh,
vehicle
that
after
was
they steal
smart.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so then he
chucked
picks
it
it
over
up,
there.
and so yeah, they're on their own, but at least now they have a form of self-defense, which is good, because now at this point, like meteors are actually hitting the mountainside, and potentially, I mean, that could potentially cause an avalanche. I mean, these people could get killed any second
They should
at
have
this
been all
point.
dead.
Yeah,
I think
actually,
meteors size that were hitting the Earth at the proximity all these characters were would cause massive destruction and
they were
death.
enormous
Yeah,
meteors.
and they were up in the mountains, like it would have caused avalanches and shit.
Hmm.
Avalanches, landslides, let alone like, I mean, you're not even talking about like how well the architecture of the building itself, like whatever kind of earthquakes could happen that could destroy wherever you're hiding out in. I mean, it didn't look like any kind of underground bunker or anything. That place would have gone up in flames if a meteor, no, it wouldn't even it would have been decimated, it would have been gone.
Yep.
And it would have been instantaneous. So the fact that these people were even deciding to meet up was already kind of a huge risk, but they do it anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, and oh yeah, and then at this point, Halle Berry and Patrick Wilson and the conspiracy theorist, who I keep forgetting the name of, they're in space by this point, and they're trying to sort of maneuver into the moon. this is about an hour and a half into the movie. This movie had
2 hours.
it had so much exposition and so much like build up. And I think the biggest problem with this movie is that it spends so much time building up like the third act that the logic just, it's all kind of gone away by that point, by the time everything kind of unfolds. And so the stakes don't really feel as high as they should anymore. Like it all kind of feels sort of pointless and bleak.
Everyone gave up. Like everyone
Yeah.
basically, once they heard this was happening, like even the big NASA dude, the head of NASA was like, "Oh, I quit. Here you go, Halle Berry. I don't care. Whatever. See ya. You're
Pretty
the new
much.
NASA lead." Everyone
Yeah.
was just bailing on life. And
Yeah, I couldn't believe how complicit, like, or how just sort of apathetic everybody in this movie was to the fact that like there was annihilation of the human race happening outside, and they just, nobody cared. It was so strange.
And there was also the plot of the military's way to destroy it, of nuking it.
Yeah.
So that was like a little timer Halle Berry and
Yeah,
Patrick Stewart and them were on.
They had to beat the clock, you know, before shit really was, you know, basically until the 0 hour.
Yeah.
And actually somewhere along the way, Patrick Wilson's son there ends up having a shootout. I mean, this movie's so dumb. He ends up having a shootout with the same scavengers that stole
what the
their
fuck was
vehicle.
that? I was like, why the same? I thought they were just different ones.
They were
like,
the same.
They definitely were the same, yeah. But it was like, okay. It would make sense if it was just another group of scavengers. They could have just done that and it would be realistic, but nope. They followed them somehow to this town they walked to, I guess. Or I don't know. I don't remember how they got there. Getting carjacked.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, after they take their vehicle, what more could they want from them? Like, why do they have to try to find them again? And why do they even engage them in the first place? Like, it's just...
How did they know that it was going to be, the auction was getting sucked out?
Yeah, I mean, although there was one cool bit though there where I think one of them was like, "We don't need the money. The world's going to end anyway," or whatever. But still, otherwise they had no way of really knowing that, other than the fact that debris was falling from the sky. And at this point, everything's blowing up. And not only that, but everything's kind of foggy too, as well. And it's looking like there's quite a bit of rain happening as well. And shit's flying in the air. I mean, pretty much everything is happening at once. Hurricanes, tornadoes. It's just
low gravity.
Low gravity.
When the moon comes, there's like that shot of like the scientists jumping into this helicopter. That was fucking funny.
Yeah. And there's even one scene where Halle Berry's caretaker and Patrick Wilson's son, they do like a Sonya Blade, Jax, like, you ever see Mortal Kombat Annihilation when they like when all that stuff, Cyrax and all that stuff blows up behind them, and there's that stupid shot where they're like jumping in front of the green screen of the explosion. There's like a moment in this where they do the same thing, which was pretty cool. I was like, all right, going back to the 90s, you know. Yeah, I mean, this is 2022, you know.
There's also that car chase as well, where there's basically they basically like use the gravity to fly off and land land on a piece of floating debris and jump off of that.
Michael Pena shows up. He lives in like this stronghold where this lady like literally shoots at she shoots at all of them. I mean, she mainly shoots at Patrick Wilson's son, but she's shooting at all of them, and she doesn't ever apologize at one point. So it's like, all right, fuck that bitch. And then then while they're driving away from these looters, Patrick Wilson's son tells Michael Pena to shoot them back. So they're playing Twisted Metal basically on the road, and everything's blown up around them. And then meanwhile, the main characters are up in space. The conspiracy theorist decides to sacrifice his life, which he didn't need to do. I didn't really like the fact that he did that, because I actually kind of liked him, and I didn't really understand why he did that. Like, I mean, I get why in a way, because like Patrick Wilson has a kid, Halle Berry has a kid. Like, they have more to lose than he does. But like, it's just kind of a bummer, And it also, like, I still didn't really understand exactly why they needed to be, why they couldn't have just detonated it remotely. Like, they never really.
They still needed that something organic with the bomb to make sure that the alien attacks it.
Yeah. Okay. You see, I forgot about the whole nanobot thing.
The whole thing was, that's like, so they go in, they're in the moon, right? And they see, so basically what's inside of it is a giant, like, dwarf, or not a giant dwarf, but a white dwarf star being harnessed for its power. In a Dyson sphere thing. And they're getting attacked by the nanobots, but something starts controlling their spaceship. Like, Patrick Wilson loses control, and it's dodging the spaceship, and it leads them to safety, which they all get knocked out because the oxygen leaves. But
I forgot.
Patrick Wilson wakes up in just like this white matrix room, and is talked to his, like, a little version of his kid when he was a child. But it's
and he basically just explains the whole plot to him.
Yep, he explains the plot that the moon was a construct of ancient humans from, I don't know, millions of galaxies away, that basically we're living the Star Trek life, where there was no war, nothing to worry about. They just had a perfect peaceful life. A bunch of AI that eventually started going murder on them. So
okay, I forgot about that whole bit. I mean, I remember it, but now that you're mentioning it, but like,
it was complex.
Well, like, because it felt like it belonged in a different movie. Like, I'm like sitting here watching this stuff, and then suddenly it turns into Prometheus.
It's like, okay, so what they did was they made a bunch of these moon things, and then just they weren't able to. The only one that made it out was our moon, and our moon created Earth.
It's a beautiful story.
But and they had to send the moon out alone too, or else this shit would find it. But I guess that didn't really help because they still found it.
Yeah, go figure. Where's my water? Yeah. Although I guess in a way it's understandable why, like, when you like, according to that logic, it does make sense that a conspiracy theorist would sort of come to the conclusion that the moon was man-made. So I mean, in that regard, the movie was kind of impressive because, like, it kind of does sort of take a lot of guts to be that dumb, but also like attach like this really weird sense of logic to it that actually kind of does make a weird sort of sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense if you think about it too much, but it makes sense when you're watching it, because it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. The idea of like a moon being singled out in particular, that makes me think of like Arthur C. Clarke or something like that, so like in a way I could almost picture this movie making like a better book than like a film, because a book, you have the time and the space to actually tell like a complete story, whereas like a movie, even with a story this crazy, and even with like 2 hours and change, it's still gonna feel overwhelming. I feel like,
it was
like, you'd have to be
stuffed a lot into those 2 hours.
It just doesn't, I don't know, it just feels like a lot, but it points for the ambition, I will say. So however, okay, so all right, so they save the world, they get back to Earth. I think at one point he even, like, the guy says, oh, where's your friend? He says he saved the world. I know that like there's that whole bit there, but I mean, there still is kind of some questions. Like, wouldn't there be, I mean, based on all that horrible stuff that was happening at the end there during that car chase, I would say there would probably be a pretty heavy amount of fallout from what the moon did at the end, because the moon pretty much does crash into the Earth.
It does. It was scraping scraping the tops of mountain tops.
Yeah. and I would imagine that based on just how heavily, because it hits the highest peak of the West, Colorado, doesn't it?
Mhm.
And I've been to Colorado. Like, I know how high those mountains are. Like, I would imagine that kind of fallout would probably affect like a good majority of Earth's population, more than likely. So, like, it's not looking good after what happens in this movie. But I do like the fact that they try to attach a kind of a nice little cute supernatural happy ending to it. Do you guys want to share your thoughts on that before, or do you want to even talk about? I mean, that was like probably the dumbest part of the movie for me, but at the same time, it made me smile. So.
The bit where what's his face?
He becomes one with the moon. He becomes part of it. So he lucks out. Doesn't work out so well with the Earth, though, with the human race. I mean, at least from my observation. I mean, that looked pretty bad.
Yeah, sequel bait. Because he like asked, well, what now? And then she said, it's time to get started.
Mm-hmm.
And then credits roll. So
yeah.
Get started on what? What do you mean get started?
Moonfall in.
On the Wikipedia, it says that there was a possibility of filming two sequels back to back.
Ooh.
If the first one was a success. So I don't know if that's gonna happen. But Game of Thrones guy said if Roland goes down the direction he wants to, the sequels will be even more batshit crazy than the first, apparently.
I mean,
Wow.
I'd see him.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, honestly, it kind of would, because like, I mean, the movie is pretty. I mean, the movie is all over the place, but I honestly like really did enjoy it quite a bit, even though it was sort of bummed me out. Like, I don't know. I thought this was actually kind of cool. Like, I think the only reason critics and people are hating on it so much is because they haven't seen enough movies. Like, I think a lot of the haters haven't seen enough movies that are like legitimately bad, because this is actually pretty good in comparison to like a lot of, like, I'd say probably most of the stuff that we've watched, actually. Like,
yeah,
that's my opinion though. Like,
yeah, I went into this with very low expectations, but
yeah,
I enjoyed it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Nick? What did you think of it? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I thought it was funny. I liked, like, I wish there was more like that. Like, what I wanted was like more of the moon crashing into the earth. Like, I wanted them to like do a crazy gravity shit with him, like jumping off the earth onto the moon and shit like that. Because I had some of that stuff. Like, there was that scene where Patrick Wilson's son was he should have been dead because he was trapped under a fucking huge tree. Like, that just in general should have probably crushed him to death, but no, he was fine. And then they
enter the right gravitational pull at the right moment.
Yeah,
the tree gets lifted.
Yeah, the girl looking after Halle Berry's son was like, "Wait, the moon's coming back. We can get this off you." And then they just pulled the huge ass tree off him, and he's fine. He's fine.
That's wonderful.
And like during that car scene, like I wanted them to like, drive off of like basically video game platform off of shit, drive on the moon, like to dodge shit and all that stuff.
Just go been even crazier.
Yeah. I wanted some cool gravity shit.
They got to bring back the cast. I mean, they got to do the sequel. Like, I'm rooting for the sequels to be made, both 2 and 3.
Why not? If he's solo, if he's independently filmed this or independently,
yeah, fuck the critics, fuck Hollywood, fuck everybody. Right. Just make the movies.
He's
quite the bomb though.
Yeah, it was.
Unfortunately, which that kind of makes me sad, because I mean, it does kind of remind me that, like, I mean, as much as I enjoyed this movie, it is super dated. Like, it feels like a movie that would have been made in the early 2000s at the like latest, like at the absolute latest. Like, I I feel like The Day After Tomorrow feels like a more recent movie in some ways than this. And that's saying a lot. This film totally doesn't feel like a 2022 movie, like in any way. Other than maybe the Twitter stuff. That's like the one thing, at least in my observation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the phone, like maybe, I guess the fact that they use cell phones, like, I don't know how many people were using cell phones in the early 2000s, like probably not many, but still like enough.
They did
You know,
have,
the Matrix existed. Oh yeah.
yeah, they did have like a shit ton of tube TVs for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why I noticed that, but I was like, what?
You know, Roland Emmerich has a vision. And according to his vision, the flat screen stuff, the 4K stuff, you know, nah. People stick with what they know. They stick with the basic analog TV, even though analog doesn't work anymore. And you know, the basic, you know, boxes where, you know, oh, I can't find the remote. Alexa, I mean, somebody does say like Alexa at one point, you know, because they have to make the connection between the nanobot AI technology. But honestly, like they really don't do it very much, considering how important that whole subplot was to the actual like storyline in the movie. They really don't like delve into the AI stuff, like even like the slightest bit. They touch on it maybe twice before they even introduce the concept. So I think Roland Emmerich, like this may have been a passion project for him, but I think he could use a little bit of help in the screenplay department. I think he's got too many ideas. He has problems with being concise. He doesn't know how to be concise. There's, you know, enough material in this movie for at least 3 decent like disaster movies, but instead he kind of opted to cram it all in, and sometimes that can work, you know. I mean, Russian films do it all the time. You look at the Night Watch, Day Watch movies, you know, those films had a lot of crazy ideas in them, but somehow they managed to fit them all in 2 movies. I think that Roland Emmerich either needs a script doctor or just needs to sort of like, he needs to sort of re-examine his drafts a little bit more and just maybe cut them into chunks and save like the AI stuff for like the second movie or the third movie, you know. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, this was a bit stuffed, I felt.
Yeah.
I felt I felt like maybe some of the stuff with like the kids and shit could have been cut a little.
Yeah.
Like maybe just a little road trip, not them getting carjacked and all of that shit. Just them trying to get to one destination instead of getting fucked over at multiple times trying to get to it.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't really understand like the importance of any of that. Like I understand like humanity, you know, falls apart during times of crisis, you know. I mean, we have the last 2 years to literally demonstrate that, but still, like there's ways to illustrate those ideas without being so literal. And it didn't really add anything, because like the son, we don't really care about him beyond the fact that he's some depressed dude who just got out of prison or got out of jail. And the kid is kind of like generic, I want you home, mommy, type of like, you know, saying the usual precocious things. The nanny was actually probably the most interesting character of the bunch, you know. And I mean, the film could have honestly, like, she was almost the main character. I feel like the film could have maybe even just been about her, or maybe the sequel could have been about her. I don't know. It was still cool though. I mean, I wasn't blown away by it, but I enjoyed it overall. So I think like I'm sort of divided between a 2 and a 3, because like it's not really like good enough in my opinion, like to really be considered a 3, I guess, in comparison to a lot of movies that I consider 3. But I would say it's still like better than a lot of bad movies, and even a lot of like mediocre movies. So I feel kind of bad giving it a 2. So maybe 2.5 would be more appropriate in this realm. I don't know, but that's my rating, I guess. So.
Yeah, I think I would give it a 2.5 as well.
Yeah, there's something here.
It was interesting. It was interesting.
To say the least.
I gave it a 3.
Nice.
I really loved, as soon as I got into the moon, I loved how over the top it went
Yeah.
with all the alien, well, not alien, the ancestral shit,
Yeah,
all the mega structure stuff. I don't know. That just was like, okay, I like this now. Like, because before that, it was just like typical disaster movie. It's like, whatever. And
yeah,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
that shit happened. I'm like, okay.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
yeah. I like that stuff too.
Yeah.
I'm more into the action stuff. I'm not even. I don't really like the movie Armageddon, but in this case, though, I actually like this movie more than Armageddon. And I would say in this film, I would have preferred more of the outer space type of Armageddon type of stuff rather than the stuff on Earth, which is more like bleak, like the day after type of stuff about like doomed humanity. I wasn't so into that stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough of it and didn't go deep enough. It's just, I don't know, there were more important things going on. I mean, literally Halle Berry and Patrick Wilson and company were trying to like prevent the moon from falling on the earth, so like that was definitely more like that was capturing my attention more. So
Yeah. Yep.
so yeah, I'd say overall above average for Roland Emmerich. I hope he can make his sequels. And yeah, I guess that's about all I have to say. Do either of you have any more thoughts or opinions or observations or even questions? Do you have any more questions?
I need lots of questions after that movie, but we didn't mention there was a Donald Sutherland cameo.
Oh yeah, I loved the Donald Sutherland cameo.
Yeah.
It wasn't long enough, but I still appreciated it.
Yeah, for some reason I thought he died, so I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise. I was like, whoa, okay. Yeah, I thought he died too, actually.
Yeah, that was interesting.
That was cool. Yeah, gave me flashbacks to Outbreak. Remember him in that, where he was the villain? He was like going to blow up an entire like village of people, just because of a virus. Crazy. And then Dustin Hoffman like got into his magical helicopter mode. Anyway, what about you, Nick? Anything else you want to say or mention?
Nope. Sorry, got a little internet buzz or
No worries.
internet skipped a little bit there, but yeah, no, I think I'm looking through my notes. I think mostly covered it all. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we covered all the basics. Yeah. Oh, okay. One thing I will say before we decide to give a round of applause to ourselves. I really did enjoy the brief moments where the characters referred to the moon as like in third person, like as if they were a person. Like at the end, when they're mentioning, oh, what happened to your conspiracy theory friend? Patrick Wilson's like, he saved us, and so did she, or so did it, or whatever. He said something. He was referring to the moon, like the moon saved them, although the moon also doomed humanity. Well, the nanobots used the moon to doom humanity, but in the end, the moon managed to make up for it a little bit by saving Patrick Wilson and Halle Berry. And also, I want to give credit to both of them for delivering some of the absolute dumbest lines with a totally straight face. Very professional. Very proud of both of them.
Good
Halle
job.
Berry, yeah. Halle Berry especially is really good at doing that. Swordfish. I gotta watch that movie again. I love that movie. That's one I've been wanting to choose for the show. But anyway, yeah. Anything else, you guys? Otherwise, I think that just about covers it. I'd say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to us discuss Moonfall. Go watch it. It's a little over 2 hours, but it's fun.
It's a fast 2 hours.
Yeah, it'll hold your attention.
Yeah. There's enough like silly, ridiculous stuff going on that it's not boring, really. So, all right. Well, until next time, have a good night, everybody, and that's all.
Yeah. Have a good one.
See ya.